All right, let's talk about the trace of a matrix. How do you solve the trace of a matrix? First of all, you need to know that you cannot find the trace of a matrix that is not a square matrix, because the trace of a matrix is always identified with a square matrix. And what is a square matrix? A square matrix is that matrix that has the same number of rows and column. And what we have right in front of us is an example of a square matrix where you have 3 rows and 3 columns right here. So this matrix has the same number of rows and column. So therefore, we can identify the leading diagonal of this matrix. The leading diagonal is often associated with a square matrix. And the leading diagonal is that diagonal. Of course, we have several diagonals, but that diagonal that comes from the top left, you can see this is the top left, and stems down to the bottom right. So this is the leading diagonal. Of course, we also have a diagonal here, but this is not the leading diagonal. The leading diagonal starts from the top left and ends at the bottom right. So how do you find the trace of a matrix? Well, the trace of a matrix is the summation of all the elements of the leading diagonal. Now that we have identified the leading diagonal as 2, 7, 3, therefore, the trace of this matrix A will be equals to 2 plus 7 plus 3, and that would give you the value of 12. That's simple. So the trace of a matrix is always the addition of the leading diagonal of a matrix. All right, I want you to pause this video and try and solve this question on your own and drop the answer in the comment section. What is the trace of matrix B rather, not matrix A? So what is the trace of matrix B? How do you resolve this? Well, as I said earlier, number one thing you have to do is to identify the leading diagonal of the matrix. The top left to the bottom right gives you your leading diagonal. So this is the leading diagonal of matrix B. The elements of the leading diagonal being -2 and 7. The trace of matrix B obviously will be the summation of the elements of the leading diagonal. Therefore, we have the trace of B to be given as -2 plus 7. We will be having the value to be 5. Now, there are several applications that you would be needing the concept of the trace of a matrix for. Take a look at the question you have right here. This is one of the reasons why you need to always be versatile in solving the trace of a matrix. We're given a question where we have a matrix A given as what you can see right in front of you, and you're told that the trace of A is 11. You are then told to find the value for X. Now, you need to be able to, first of all, understand what the trace of a matrix is. And then what is before you know the trace of a matrix, you have to know the leading diagonal. I already said the leading diagonal is the diagonal that stems from the top left to the bottom right. So therefore, we've been able to identify our leading diagonal. And what we need to do next is to use our understanding of the trace of a matrix to find the value for X. So if the trace of a matrix is the sum of the leading diagonal, meaning that to find the trace of A, we would say 2 plus X plus 2X. This was going to be what we had to do to find the trace of A. But then we've been given the trace of A to be 11. So therefore, we can go on to use that to find the value for X. 2 plus X will obviously be 3X. 2 plus 3X equals to 11. Therefore, we would have 3x to be equals to 11 minus 2. Then 3x will be equals to 9. Dividing both sides by 3, dividing both sides by 3, we would get x to be what? 3. So we can go on to identify our value for x as 3. So this is one of the reasons why you have to always understand the trace of a matrix. You can be given a question like this to solve, where you have to use the application of the trace of a matrix to resolve for several values or values elements in the matrix. All right, let me see how well you can do in this question. I would love you to drop your response in the comment section. You have a matrix A, you have a matrix B, and you're told that the trace of A is equals to the trace of B. So then find the value for X. I really hope you'll be able to resolve this easily. If you have any problem resolving it, or if you have any question on the trace of a matrix, let me know in the comment section below, and let me have the answer to this in the comment section below. All right, guys, thank you guys for joining us. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.